Cicely Towers, she said for the recorder. Female, age 45, divorced. Resides 2132 East 83rd, number 61B. No robbery. Victim still wearing jewelry. Approximately, she flipped through the wallet, 20 in hard bills, 50 credit tokens, 6 credit cards left at scene. No overt signs of struggle or sexual assault. She looked back at the woman sprawled on the sidewalk. What the hell were you doing out here, Towers? She wondered. Here, away from the power center, away from your classy home address. And dressed for business, she thought. Eve knew Cicely Towers' authoritative wardrobe well, had admired it in court and at City Hall. Strong colors, always camera-ready, coordinated accessories, always with a feminine touch. Eve rose, rubbed absently at the wet knees of her jeans. Homicide, she said briefly. Bagger. It was no surprise to Eve that the media had caught the scent of murder and were already hunting it down before she'd reached the glossy building where Cicely Towers had lived. Several remotes and eager reporters were camped on the pristine sidewalk. The fact that it was 3 a.m. and raining buckets didn't deter them. In their eyes, Eve saw the wolf gleam. The story was the prey, ratings the trophy. She could ignore the cameras that swung in her direction. The questions shot out like stinging darts. She was almost used to the loss of her anonymity. The case she had investigated and closed during the past winter had catapulted her into the public eye. The case, she thought now as she aimed a steely glance at a reporter who had the nerve to block her path, and her relationship with Roarke. The case had been murder, and violent death, however exciting, soon passed out of the public interest. But Roarke was always news. What do you have, Lieutenant? Do you have a suspect? Is there a motive? Can you confirm the prosecuting attorney Towers was decapitated? Eve slowed her ground-eating stride briefly and swept her gaze over the huddle of soggy, feral-eyed reporters. She was wet, tired, and revolted, but she was careful. She'd learned that if you gave the media any part of yourself, it squeezed it, twisted it, and wrung it dry. The department has no comment at this time other than the investigation into prosecuting attorney Towers' death is proceeding. Are you in charge of the case? I'm primary, she said shortly, then swung between the two uniforms guarding the entrance to the building. The lobby was full of flowers, long banks and flows of fragrant, colorful blooms that made her think of spring and some exotic place. The island where she had spent 3 dazzling days with Roarke while she'd recovered from a bullet wound and exhaustion. She didn't have time to smile over the memory, as she would have under other circumstances, but flashed her badge and moved across the terracotta tiles to the first elevator. There were more uniforms inside. 2 were behind the lobby desk, handling the computerized security. Others watched the entrance. Still others stood by the elevator tubes. It was more manpower than necessary, but as PA, Towers had been one of their own. Her apartment secured? Eve asked the closest cop. Yes, sir. No one's been in or out since your call at 0210. I'll want copies of the security discs. She stepped into the elevator. For the last 24 hours, to start. She glanced down at the name on his uniform. I want a detail of 6 for door-to-doors, beginning at 700, Biggs. Floor 61, she ordered, and the elevator's clear doors closed silently. She stepped out into the 61st's lush carpet and museum quiet. The halls were narrow, as they were in most multi-habitation buildings erected within the last half-century. The walls were a flawless creamy white, with mirrors at rigid intervals to lend the illusion of space. Space was no problem within the units, Eve mused. There were only 3 on the entire floor. She decoded the lock on 61B using her police and security MasterCard and stepped into quiet elegance. Cicely Towers had done well for herself, Eve decided, and she liked to live well. As Eve took the pocket video from her field kit and clipped it onto her jacket, she scanned the living area. She recognized 2 paintings by a prominent 21st century artist hanging on the pale rose-toned wall above a wide U-shaped conversation area.